she finally gets to a question that I didn't want to answer for her. And I started having a really strong grasping for breath attack, and my eyes were flooding with tears because of the question she asked.
Let's just say I made a few bad investments over the years that almost ruined me financially. And it turns out spending the rest of your savings on daiquiris and slot machines in the back of a bar doesn't provide the best return on investment. Now that I was completely financially ruined, I spent my days drunkenly stumbling up and down the streets of New Orleans, helplessly hoping for an answer to all of my problems. I was about to admit defeat until I awoke from a much-needed nap and found the answer to my misfortune right in front of my eyes. Historically speaking, what has always been the best way to overcome financial hardship? Piracy, obviously. And no, I'm not talking about the kind that lets me watch Top Gun whenever I want. So I started to do some research, and that's when I happened upon a pirate by the name of Jean Lafitte and the fabled stories of all the riches he had hidden all over the Gulf Coast. I had finally found the answer to all of my problems, but I needed more information on the legendary pirate if I wanted to claim his treasure for myself. Thus, my quest for financial freedom brought me to the old stomping grounds of Jean, Galveston, Texas. While there, I reached out to a Lafitte historian by the name of
Jim Nonus, Jimnonus.
The first step in my journey was to learn everything I could about Jean Lafitte. And I wanted to know why we still talk about this man to this day.
Because he was the hero of the Battle of New Orleans. He was famous before the battle, famous enough that the British called on him for his help to beat the Americans in the Battle of New Orleans. And he furnished the flints, the gunpowder, and the cannoneers, the Baratarians, to fight that battle at that time. And had they not had his help, had they not had the flints and gunpowder, they would not have won the war. He was looking for another port where he could run an operation similar to Barataria, and he was forced out of New Orleans. And so he went to Galveston, that was further down the coast. He had been there to visit with the Ari and the Mina expeditions that were housed on Galveston Island at the time. And he was surveying all the watersheds that were flowing into the Gulf and into the Galveston Bay, and he was familiar with that territory. And it was a natural port similar to Grand Isle. There was a deep port right behind the island, and at high tide you could bring in a fairly large ship, and it was very safe at low tide because the other big ships couldn't get to you.
I couldn't help but ask myself, why would Jean Lafitte, a U.S. war hero, be kicked out of the port city of New Orleans?
He helps with the Battle of New Orleans, and they get forgiven of all their piracy sins and whatever. They are celebrated as heroes for a very short time, but then Lafitte disappears for about a year and a half. He comes back here periodically, but not for very long, and his reputation drastically goes downhill. The men that were serving with him in Barataria get in trouble, and they get the Baratarians back in trouble and later labeled pirates, and they associate all of this with Lafitte. And so he gets the blame for that, and by then his return in November, right before 1917, back into New Orleans, he realizes he's really no longer welcome here. And the stories have gone wild, and it made the newspapers. So there's a lot of negative press coming out at this time. So he decides to totally relocate to Galveston, the next port, out of the jurisdiction of the U.S. immediately. So he's beyond the border there, and it's a little safer, even though they still patrol the area. But it was Spanish territory, and they had colonists coming in to colonize it, the original 300 shortly thereafter. So he felt safer, and it was a similar type port that he felt he could recreate the commune that he had in Barataria and now called Campeche.
This video is brought to you by Ghost City Tours.
Looking for a scary good time with friends? Join the party with our haunted pub crawl through Galveston. Encounter the ghosts of hurricane victims and learn the spine-chilling tales of the town. You'll need all the liquid courage you can get to survive this haunted tour. Grab your tickets now at ghostcitytours.com.
As we talked more about the famed pirate, Jim began to open up about some eerie experiences he had when visiting Lafitte's former commune.
We had a wonderful seance there. A dear friend of mine who is now deceased was very into going off into a trance and could speak in tongues. So we organized this evening with the Lafitte Society, and we had a local ghost tour guide come conduct kind of a seance or a scanning for ghosts on the property. And my dear friend, Lady Elizabeth, went into a trance and started speaking in tongues and shaking all over. And she told us that beneath where she was standing, there was a woman and child buried on the property.
Jim went on to tell me a haunting story from his childhood.
I was probably between 3 and 4, and I would be sleeping in my bed, and these two grisly-looking pirates would enter our house, come to my bed, and put me in a tow sack and take me on board a ship. And so I was stolen from my bed. And I don't know what prompted all that. I don't know if that ever happened to Lafitte or not. It's possible. And then the other one about the sword fight was in a colonial building that I really had no knowledge of at that age. And I didn't know anything about sword fighting at 4. And so those dreams just were reoccurring. The sword fight would make me wake up. I was so scared. To have this dream over a period of years for probably 20, 30 times or more, it was trying to tell me something or prepare me for something. I did a past life regression with a hypnotist in Galveston, and I was compelled to do so because I wanted to know what is up with me and Lafitte. I had opened Pirates Alley, and it was 1994, so I went to Spanish Grant, of all places, great name, to do this past life regression with this lady. And we went under, as you would say, and she started asking questions, and I was seeing video in my third eye. You know, my eyes were closed, I was very relaxed, and it's the only time I've really been able to go under and see video of what she was asking me. And everything she asked me was about, where are you now? And it was really through the eyes of this spirit that I was seeing scenes. And I saw the sidewalks of New Orleans. And through this entire evening, she finally gets to a question that I didn't want to answer for her. And I started having a really strong grasping for breath attack, and my eyes were flooding with tears because of the question she asked. She asked me, why did you leave New Orleans? And I really didn't want to tell her, so she asked me a second time after she saw this physical reaction that I was having, and she said, why did you leave New Orleans? And I finally told her, because they called me a pirate and a thief. And then I said to myself, after all I had done for them. So I definitely have some type of spiritual memory of Lafitte that I can't explain. I think it's possible that I shared a lifetime in his boots.
After hearing about Jim's paranormal experiences with the spirit of Jean Lafitte, I began to second guess my pursuit of his lost treasure. But then I realized that he wouldn't be the hero of the Battle of New Orleans if he let fear get in his way. So now it was time to get down to brass tacks, because I wanted Jean Lafitte's precious booty all for myself.
So there was also treasure, and there's a lot of interesting debate on was there any treasure, whatever. There weren't any banks in Texas to house this money. You could ship it back to New Orleans, but then that's a little risky too. So there were some stories about it being sent up rivers to eventually make its way to St. Louis to be banked or stored, and there's possible some of it was buried. We have a gentleman, J.O. Dyer, who was writing in the late 1800s newspaper articles in the Galveston News about pirate treasure. I have a guy in Houston that's written a beautiful article about the potential and the possibility of treasure still being on the island.
After talking with Jim about the history of Jean Lafitte, I was extremely confident that it was only a matter of time until that treasure was mine. All that's left to do now is stake my claim on this life by accomplishing what others can't, just as Lafitte did in his day.